5 years ago, a crude oil train derailed in Lac-Mégantic, Quebec. The resulting fire killed 47 people. Environmental activists are attempting to avoid such a disaster in Baltimore.
The time to stop this oil train is right now.
On an unseasonably warm February day, a city council committee voted to advance a bill that would change the city's zoning code to ban the construction of crude oil terminals in Baltimore.
Bill passes as amended. This concludes City Council Bill 17-0150.
Advocates say that the crude oil train terminals pose dangers to public health.
When workers and residents are exposed to the chemicals in crude oil, they can have prolonged respiratory symptoms years after the spill, liver and blood disorders, and even lung cancer.
Crude oil transportation is the cheapest, but it also poses the highest health risks and safety for our urban communities.
The activists say some 165,000 residents live in the blast zone, or the area near the tracks where crude oil is shipped that would be affected by an explosion. Keisha Allen lives just half a block away from the train tracks.
The people who are most affected as it relates to South Baltimore, I know it runs in West Baltimore as well, but already marginalized communities.
Survivors of incidents, especially like in Lac-Mégantic, call rivers of fire, and that's really what is so destructive.
Before the hearing, activists gathered outside City Hall for a rally in support of the bill.
We need to free ourselves from fossil-based fuels which are contributing to climate change.
They were joined by the bill's co-sponsor, Ed Reisinger, and its chief sponsor, Mary Pat Clark.
If we limit any expansion or new terminals for crude, we begin to diminish the future traffic through and in Baltimore City.
We have companies like CSX and other businesses. They're looking through the lens of profit and not the people's public safety.
But opponents say that crude oil is being unfairly singled out when other commodities can also have dangerous public health effects. They say a ban could set a dangerous precedent.
Tomorrow it will be jet fuel. On Friday it will be gasoline, Saturday chlorine, and maybe by Monday we'll ban sugar.
The activists agreed that other commodities can be harmful, but they say crude oil is far less regulated.
I think the truth of the matter is those products are far more regulated. We know a lot more about them than we know about crude oil. And crude oil is actually the problem here.
Valerie Hall, a former firefighter, also said she fears firefighters are not properly trained to handle crude oil fires. She found out that there's not a single hazmat-trained firefighting unit in all of South Baltimore.
So if we had a derailment or an explosion of crude oil in South Baltimore on any given one of those 5 train tracks, it would be catastrophic.
Opponents also argue that this ban will be bad for Baltimore's business and labor.
What message are we sending then to the port when we, by zoning, prohibit this crude oil from happening?
So in effect, by limiting this expansion of an existing terminal or the creation of a new terminal, if they can't do that in Baltimore City, they're going to go do that in Anne Arundel County or Baltimore County.
But the activists feel differently.
There are very few jobs involved in a crude oil refinery. I mean, you're talking maybe a handful of jobs. And a handful of jobs compared to putting people's lives at risk, it doesn't really make sense.
Each jurisdiction can only act where they are at. So this is the most Baltimore City can possibly do. Baltimore County could do the same thing, and I hope that they will follow the city's example and do that. We shouldn't be waiting to be the last to take action on this issue. Baltimore City here has the opportunity to lead and be first in doing something really positive.
We need this bill to pass. It is one of the pieces that we need if we're going to have good, sustainable work and a sustainable energy future here.
Baltimore is already home to 2 crude oil terminals. We've reached out to the facilities for comment.
Yeah, so there are 2 terminals that are currently permitted to ship crude oil. They would be grandfathered in under this bill. They just would not be allowed to expand. So that's what happens so this bill would put crude oil terminals into our prohibited use category of our zoning code. And that's what happens when you become a prohibited use and you're already in existence, is you can't expand your operations.
Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark says this is the time to act. With oil prices low, there are likely fewer shipments of crude oil taking place in the U.S.
We're not costing any jobs. We're not taking away anything that exists. But we don't want to become a crude oil hub.
Advocates say this bill can help usher in a just transition to renewable, sustainable energy.
This is the opportunity for the city to act comprehensively, preemptively, and smartly.
With Taylor Hebden, this is Tharna Noor in Baltimore.